Morning, everyone. We are very excited to get ready. How's everybody doing? Great. This is a treat for us. They have a smart room in Tampa. They just moved into a beautiful new building downtown. I'm sure they'll tell you a little about it. They had extra researchers coming in, so they're trying to get themselves all situated for us to see what's happening. So just hang in here for a few more minutes and we should be getting started.
I'd like to thank everybody for your patience with us this morning. We are so excited to have a room full of interested people today. My name is Angela Hill, and I have the pleasure of serving as your Mistress of Ceremony. Again, we want to thank you so much for your patience with us today. We're trying to optimize technology. We have both a live audience and a virtual audience. And so we're just so excited and really trying to make sure that everything goes well for both audiences. So thanks again for your patience. As mentioned, I am Angela Hill. I have the pleasure of being a professor and associate dean of clinical affairs at the Tanager College of Pharmacy at the University of South Florida. And I'm also the project director for We Care, which is our community outreach arm, where we actually try to engage in the community at events like this to empower the community with information about research and other health disparate areas. You'll have the pleasure today of hearing from our dean, the executive director for We Care. He's also VP, as well as a whole bunch of other things that I'll tell you about a little later. But to get started, I'd like to invoke our higher presence today to allow us to just all settle. Many of you have seen me running around today just with excitement. You know, these kind of events, you don't sleep the night before because you're wanting everything to go perfect. And so I have to just say, being in this room, having the city of Tampa host us in this venue, we're just so excited to be here. So I would like to first invite a gentleman who thought it not robbery to spend this morning with us. We also have the pleasure of honoring his family by honoring his wife a little later this morning. And so I'd like to invite Reverend Dr. Montez Kaufman, who's the chaplain, as well as the St. Leo adjunct professor at the University of South Florida Baptist, to come and invoke us for this event.
Let us pray. Dear eternal God, we ask your blessing upon this meeting of community advocacy and research engagement. We also ask that you touch the honorees today to build up and further the cause of this organization. We also ask that you bless the food that will be prepared for you. In the name of our God, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. So We Care, as I mentioned, is our community outreach arm for the college. And I kind of gave you a shortened version of our mission. But primarily today, you're participating in our primary mission, and that is to really enhance and empower all of you regarding nuances related to research that you may not appreciate. Our hope, though, is that you will today become a We Care ambassador for us, where you can go back and tell others about this kind of work that we're doing. Now, we achieve our mission by working with community partners, and I'd like to take a moment of pause because this morning we have many of them here with us. We have 50 Hoops, which is hosting our program, and they're from Texas. And so we're so grateful for Mr. and Mrs. Sanders. They wanted so bad to be here today physically, but they're in our virtual audience. We also have Moffitt Cancer Center, and so they have a table today to share with you some information about things that they're doing. And then we call the Wind Beneath Our Wings Reach Up, who's here in multiple capacities today. And we actually have the pleasure of honoring some of our team because they have just been so essential to our success. And then we have AHEC, which I also saw Latoya there she is, in the audience today. And of course, we couldn't do this without the support of the university. So we have representatives from the college. I noticed several professors, the chair of the department, and others that are here today. But what we've done we've done a variety of events, and particularly during COVID, many of you may have seen or heard of us through some of our virtual workshops. But community advocacy matchmaking events are really the brainchild of 50 Hoops, and so you all get to see the post-COVID version. We also have a community advisory board that is composed of members that assist us in working with researchers to actually help them with their recruitment efforts. And then we do a variety of other interfaces. But this is just but a smattering of some of the community partners that we've established both locally as well as nationally. And we do a variety of those kind of events as we mentioned. Sometimes we're just to tag along and sometimes they allow us to lead the show. But we're grateful because all of you should see all of yourselves within there. What's also probably not as apparent is the faith-based community that we work so very closely with on several of our initiatives. So what we're going to do today in terms of program style before we actually eat lunch is do something that is very near and dear to the hearts of 50 Hoops, and that is actually induct legends into our work group. So I'm going to try to see if I can multitask here because we really want to make this authentic. But let me give you the background first. So 50 Hoops identifies individuals that are in the community and doing the work of research recruitment and or health disparities related work, and they anoint them legends. So most of us that are part of the WeCare team have already in the past been anointed legends. So Dr. Sneed and I are going to put on our legend hat because today we get the pleasure of inducting a new legend to our group. Who is a legend anyway in her own right? So, put my hat on, Dr. Sneed, his hat on. Dr. Sneed has agreed to be my Vanna White. It's not often you get that to be your Vanna White, but he's agreed to be my Vanna White. So let me tell you a little bit about 50 Hoops so you can understand more about what you're about to see. The 50 Hoops Legend is a national coalition of individuals from doctors and researchers to enthusiastic patients, survivors, and community advocates. From renowned teaching hospitals, cancer centers, to mega churches and rural communities. Some of them are from national patient education organizations or other medical professionals. But since 2021, the Legends have conducted or participated in at least 6 of the 50 Hoops branded events. And having conducted virtual conferences or workshops for nearly 4 years, we've continued to grow from organizations, churches, and patients who have benefited. As a legend of legends, we all become part of a national coalition of advocates for our communities, and each shares a singular passion, which is educating African Americans and those with disparities by providing health and medical resources to their local communities. And also through digital and live events, we will continue to focus on screening and understanding treatment options, helping communities understand the importance of clinical trials. Legends also tirelessly seek testimonials from people who look like us and updating audiences about diseases that critically affect the lives of families and communities. And in naming new legends, we seek to expand our network with those who have shown interest in the communities they serve, which mirrors our combined goals. Understanding that no man is an island, and by working autonomously in natural synchrony with each other and in the rhythm of what God has intended for each of our lives, we can reach not hundreds but millions. So we now stand before you and the veterans of 50 Helps Legends, the OGs, or specifically the ones who through God have seen the lives and the love of mentoring among you and your network of African American communities. For our legend today, you've been chosen by legends who unanimously believe that we will do together with 50 Hoops Legends annually as a coalition will be unique and authentic like our founders intended and like you. We will now have the turning of the tassel by our new inductee. We'd like to ask Dr. Deanna Waddington, of whom you can see her bio on the screen. And we are just so fortunate. So as she stands here, we get to watch her turn her tassel. But first, I'm going to try to get us some background music. So as she's coming forward. So, if you don't mind going in the front, and my Dr. Sneed, you'll be presenting some stuff to her, and you already turned it?
I know,
Awesome. So we would like to visualize her turning her tassel and becoming a legend. So all let's give her. So the beauty of this is that Dr. Waddington, as I mentioned on the slide, actually is now serving as president-elect of the American Public Health Association. Isn't that She's the clinical director of Reach Up, which is, as I mentioned, one of our most important partners, and an affiliate professor at the University of South Florida Public Health, and the executive director of the Consortium of African American Public Health Programs. I have to take liberty also to say that when I came and joined the Tenacia College of Pharmacy, Dr. Waddington helped us build our program and taught our intro to public health course. And I was chairing the department at that time, and it was just such a joy to work with her. She mentored us, mentored me, and continues to do that on a daily basis. She has served, when she left us for a stint though, and went to Bethune-Cookman College of Health Sciences, and I forgive her of being the rattler that I am. And she served as Associate Dean for Academic and Student Affairs, as mentioned at the USF College of Public Health, Founding Associate Dean for Academic Enrichment at the USF College of Medicine, and also as the Director of the Office of Minority Health and the Florida Department of Health. You see why we've made her a legend today? Yeah. So join me again in giving her a round of applause for all the work she's done and all the work she's gonna do as a legend. Congratulations. A minute or two to say it.
Okay, I'm gonna try not to cry. So I'm literally up here with, okay, I'm gonna say it, I'm sorry for those of you who know Dean Sneed, Associate Vice President Sneed, and I well. I've always called him my little brother. We started out in the family medicine clinic together at USF. I have been with USF in some form of capacity since 1998. I am a Bull through and through. At least one of the 4 kids has also graduated from USF. But more importantly, I want to say thank you so very much. 50 Hoops has been doing phenomenal work now for decades, as you can see with the celebration of the anniversary. And for many of the folks in this room, I feel so blessed to say that I know you. It's wonderful to see you again. I know that I left for a stint, went over to the other side and graduated some really great kids, young people from that side of the state. And it's been a pleasure to come back and serve this community again. And I hope to just continue to do whatever it is that ensures that we have great community health, that we have the members of the community who are aware that they can enroll in clinical trials and they can make a difference. And I just thank you for your support. And to my sister and my former boss, Dr. Hill, thank you so much. I love you, you know that.
Now, periodically, you get a chance to work with people that remind you of somebody. And the first time I heard this person speak and saw her in person, my grandmother's spirit, my mom's mom, and my mom is here today, came to me. And so it is such an honor to now honor our living legend in the person of Dr. Deborah Austin. So we'd like her to come forward.
and also turn her tassel. So you can see she's as beautiful on the inside, and for those of you that know her, she's also beautiful on the inside. If you get a chance to work her, she has that matter-of-factly way about her, but it's all well intended. And that beautiful smile, but that confidence, and she has been such a link to the community for us, and certainly made such a difference in mentoring me and accepting me as program director for We Care. One of the exciting things about Dr. Austin is that she served at the University of South Florida as well, in the College of Public Health and the Child Center, but she also is a co-founder of Reach Up. And they just celebrated 25 years, but she worked alongside Loberry, who I hope is in our virtual audience. She and I were chatting this morning, and she sends her love and sends a hug. But awfully proud of the work that they have done in child and maternal health is just phenomenal. The Fatherhood Conference, if any of you have ever attended, this is the kind of work that Dr. Austin has been a part of. So as she turns her tassel and stands alongside Dr. Sneed, I know Dr. Sneed joins me in saying we couldn't do the work we do if it wasn't for Dr. Austin. So we are just so excited to honor her today as a living legend.
Good morning, everyone. This is such a privilege and an honor and an humbling experience. And I look around this room, and I know so many people here, people who, without them, I would not be where I am today. So I'm so grateful. My pastor is here. The second co-founder, Vanessa Mishkit, is here. And I won't start naming folks because I would take too much time. But I just want to say thank you to you. Even I have here Mother Dandelion. I have to acknowledge her. Some of you all know my grandfather turned 100 years old this year. And he is so fresh and fast, he considers that to be his dandelion. So that's my mama here in Tampa, so I am so grateful. But again, to Pat and Ed, who are so tremendous, and like you, Dr. Hill, one of the things that Pat talks about is her mother and I are both November girls, and so we are much reminiscent of each other. The last thing I'd like to say is that I love getting calls from Dr. Sneed. When Dr. Sneed calls me, he says, my friend. And for Dr. Hill and Dr. Sneed and some others of you, out of all the tremendous things that you are to me, the most important thing is that you call me friend. Wow. And I call you friend. And that's the greatest blessing. Yeah.
So during the pandemic, this core team had the opportunity to provide, what was our last count?
148.70 over 200 collectively.
Yes, different programs, and we had the opportunity to work with Dr. Austin in all of them. And so it would be so funny, we would just be doing these programs, and then there would be this after party, after you do an event, we stay on, and people wouldn't get off. It would be so funny, so we had some groupies. So as we prepare for lunch, I want to just say thank you so much for sharing with us our legends. We wanted to honor them, and so we're so excited to have Dr. Waddington join us as a legend. And then Dr. Austin, she went through that exercise you go through when you get your Social Security. Some people call it retirement. And so we showed up at Reach Up and we celebrated all these wonderful things she had done. And so instead of retiring her, we're rewiring her. So she's agreed to still work with We Care. And so she
still shows up at our meetings, still shows up at our events. And so we're planning her true retirement sometime soon. We'll let you know when that's gonna happen, but we just we just value her so much, so much. So today you're in for a treat. We have food that's been catered by Table 22, another East Tampa business. If you have not visited them on Fowler Avenue, please do so, but you'll get a chance today to taste it. So we're gonna ask that my administrative team from USF will direct the table traffic out front. If you need to use the bathrooms, please exit the same way you entered and make a left past the little reception area. And as you go towards the elevators, you'll see the bathrooms there. And you can wash your hands or do whatever you like in the interim. And we encourage you to check out our centerpieces. They have a lot of information on them. And so you can learn a little bit more about some of our community partners' work, particularly our barbershop talk that Envision Resolution is doing, and they're here today with the table. We also have a wellness program. We encourage you to stand up, and if you haven't gotten some of the handouts out front at our regarding We Care, we have a couple copies of our newsletter and those kind of things. Please help yourself to that. But we ask that you enjoy lunch, and we are going to probably give us about 10-15 minutes, enough time for everyone to get their food, and then Dr. Steen is going to bless us with a little mini lecture that I think you're going to enjoy. So thank you. We'll say 200th time to introduce a gentleman who I have a great deal of respect for. He has been my dean for the last maybe 14 years here at the University of South Florida, but I was fortunate to work alongside with him, although we were at two different campuses during his tenure at Florida A&M University for 7 years. And who would have known that life would take us to this point? And so as the College of Pharmacy is approaching again 14 years, it has just been a phenomenal ride. We are doing phenomenal things at the college, producing what we call tomorrow's pharmacists. And so certainly it's a pleasure to work under integral leadership, God-centered leadership, and a leadership style that has a love, an authentic love for community. On the formal side of things, he serves as the founding dean for our college at the University of South Florida, senior professor. He's also the senior associate vice president for USF Health. And he actually got his bachelor's degree from the University of Central Florida. And he focused on biology and a concentration in microbiology. And typically when you hear that, you think med school, right? Well, that didn't happen. Look at him now. He's one of the best pharmacists out there. But he went on to receive his Doctor of Pharmacy degree from Xavier University out of Louisiana's College of Pharmacy after a stint at the University of Florida. So we could have seen him on the football field, but unfortunately an injury kind of stumped that, and that's kind of how he went down the science path. But as we see him now, after getting his pharmacy degree, he completed an ambulatory care residency at Bay Pines VA Hospital, and he is known all around the world. He's what we call our local futurist. And so not too many people can navigate through the worlds of healthcare at the same time as politics and at the same time as innovation, right? And so that's a phenomenal combination to actually have in a leader. But he's also one of those that has walked the walk and talked the talk. He's a career academician, and so he knows what it's like to be a professor and understands what it takes to actually get people not to just come, but to come and stay and be fulfilled in that regard. He's been given numerous clinical and leadership awards, but he most recently received the Distinguished Fellow from the National Academies of Practice Award from the National Academies of Practice, the Chauncey L. Cooper Medal from the National Pharmaceutical Association, and the National Pharmaceutical Association Fellow from the National Pharmaceutical Association. He serves on the board of several organizations and participates in a lot of community endeavors, and actually did a program focusing on prostate cancer right here in this East Tampa campus, and a lot of other research-oriented things. So this isn't something he pretends to do. This is just what he's made of, his community work. And so to give you a little bit more background regarding WeCare, it actually started off as a carve-out from a P20 grant with Moffitt and the College of Public Health, where there was a Center for Health Equity. And we actually had individuals who are still a part of our WeCare family, but have gone on to big places like Morehouse School of Medicine, and Drs. Austin, Dr. Wallington were part of those early days when I was serving as chair of the department and kind of on the periphery, but still involved. And then when I came on in 2019 as program director, by that time the funding from that grant had ended. And instead of it being a Center for Health Equity, it got repurposed as WeCare. So he's going to share with you all today some exciting things. I gave him an assignment actually, and we talked about him talking about what's really going on with these weight loss medications. Everybody's heard of Ozempic and Mounjaro and all these drugs being used for weight loss. So you are in for a treat. My pleasure again to introduce you some and present to others. None other than my boss, my dean, Dr.
Well, the first two things I'm going to say to you. Number one, after that introduction, I'm interested to see what I'm going to say. And then number two, this is what happens when you've known people for like 20 years. Because she went into everything that was not on the written profile. So that's when you really have an appreciation for really knowing people. I'm going to do a couple of things real quick, and I promise I'm not going to have you here. It's going to be a task, because I do realize I'm coming to you after you're eating food. Okay? But I'm going to try and keep you all awake here. But what I'm going to do, much like, and she mentioned it before, myself, Dr. Hill, Dr. Washington, Dr. Austin, during the pandemic, we literally did over 200 educational programs. And it started off locally, and before you knew it, we were even not only just around the country, around the world. And so I'm going to, every time I would give that talk, I would say, well, I'm going to pull you all into my scientific world. Okay? Now, I know many of you may not be scientists, but I'm going to pull you all into that world a little bit. I'm going to make it easy to understand. But I didn't really have to do too much to prepare this presentation. I just did an international webinar yesterday morning with collaborators from Hong Kong, Spain, and Poland. And I was the featured speaker for that, and so really it's the same presentation almost. So we're going to get started here. I think we're going to get started here. Yes, we are going to get started here. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, this was an author who I just found out has a peripheral affiliation with Dr. Waddington. That's kind of cool. I actually met this author a couple of years ago when she was introducing this book called Some of Us, and Heather McGee. And the fundamental question that she had in the book is, why can't we have nice things? Now, what do we mean by that? It doesn't mean, going out and getting a brand new Tesla, the latest, Mercedes. Like, why can't we just live a normal life? And why can't we expect to have the normal things that any human being would want to have, such as clean water, food, good food to eat, shelter, reasonable opportunity to enjoy your family. It really got me thinking, and coming out of the pandemic, life expectancy became a big deal because of the pandemic. Life expectancy dropped really rapidly. Now, I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but this really is the underpinning of the entire work that I've been doing now in this health equity space now for over 15 years. And so if you look here at the very top, if you happen to be an Asian female, life expectancy in this country is over 85 years. Okay, 85 years of age. You come down here, and then you get to white female, Caucasian female. Life expectancy is 80 years, and then we see the first big drop. Okay, we drop 5 years from here to African American females down to 75, which is just above Caucasian males here, right at 75. But then to really bring it home, and a lot of the work, again, I wanted to really focus on beginning with the Market Cancer Center, when we had that Center for Equal Health, is that if you are an African American male, life expectancy in this country is barely 68 years. Okay? Barely 68 years. Now, there's a reason for that, and that encompasses a lot of things. But it almost doesn't matter. Okay? And so then, if we go one step further, we see here at the very bottom our indigenous population men, and even lower than that, at not even 64 years. And so, one time during the Center for Equal Health, we were having a session where we would just try and beat up the graduate students real hard. I mean, we would grill them incessantly, just over and over. But on one particular day, I sat out and I stood in the corner and I just listened to the conversation. And I heard something different than what the conversation was. The question that day is that we had an individual, a male, African American male, that had stage 4 prostate cancer. And we had a medication that could give them 1 more year of life. 1 more year. How will we select the one person that will get that $1 million medication? Wow. What criteria? Okay, and so it was an academic exercise, of course. But the conversation I heard is that, number one, we were dying earlier. And when we think about men dying at 60 to 65, you think about the impact of they're leaving behind their children, they're leaving behind their friends, they're leaving behind their wife. But the epiphany that hit me and it floored me that day and has driven me as much as possible. But what was the impact of that man not being around for grandchildren? Yeah. What was the impact of that? Because we never really think about it, but even when you get to that age, you're still being a role model for your own children as they're trying to navigate through having their children, who are your grandchildren. And so if you take this almost 10-year difference here, we're missing out. Grandchildren are not getting the full benefit of the full family unit of having an elder statesman around. And so that really drove me in a much different and almost in a natural way with the work I was doing. So, as we mentioned, you've seen this slide before, we transitioned from the Center for Equal Health, we transitioned into We Care. I'm going to go through this very quickly. Okay, normally I ask questions, but I'm not going to ask the questions I normally do. Let me stand here so you all can see me. So obviously we have Tiger Woods, Beyonce. Anyone know the person in the lower left? Okay, so let me tell you, that's a social experiment I do. I showed the same slide to younger people, and you know who they say? That's The Weeknd. Wow. That's how I know I'm talking to a mature group. And the question I normally ask, if they all had the very same health challenge, and they were going to get the very same medication, all 3 of them, normally we would look at all 3 and we would visually say, they're African American, they're about the same age, similarly complected. But then let's say if we gave them the very same medication, would that medication work the same for all three? And we say no, because you know what? Tiger Woods had an African American father, Asian mother. Beyonce had two what we would call traditional African American parents, although I keep hearing about this Creole thing I haven't figured out yet. And of course, Lenny Kravitz had an African American mother and a Caucasian father. So their genetics are different. And so we are moving into an age right now, okay? Right now at this moment, I'm going to show you here at the end, where now we have the capability of using genetics to begin to predict how people are going to respond to a medication. Okay, we can begin to predict if it's going to work for you or not. If you're going to have particular medication interactions or not. Do you have an enhanced effect or a diminished effect? And so all of that is happening right now. And so in We Care, what we're trying to do are connect the people who are doing that level of research directly to the community. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole Tuskegee discussion at this moment, but we've heard of that. But we did, Dr. Austin actually did it. We had a focus group, and we really found that young people, they're not driven by Tuskegee. But what they are still suffering from is the mistrust of clinical research. They cannot name Tuskegee, but we have passed a level of mistrust down that we have to work harder to overcome. And so here, you kind of see what were the issues that we were trying to overcome with We Care. Again, not to read them all, but typically the community may not be aware of the clinical research opportunities that are really going on. They may not feel included in a process. And then here at the bottom, you see lack of trust or my opinion doesn't matter. Okay? And then from the research side, they have a perception of being in the ivory tower. They don't interface well with communities. And then at some point in time, they're not enrolling enough people of diverse backgrounds. So both have a particular problem and a challenge. Now I can promise you, for all the mistrust that I've personally watched happen over a 20-year period, the researchers are well-intentioned people. I mean, they are very good people. Sometimes they may not be the best communicator. They may not communicate in the way that many people in the community are equipped to receive the information. Or the normal thing that we would do may be advertising on a radio station. You may not get to our radio station. Putting a flyer up in the elevator. You may not be in that elevator. And so we needed to find ways to really and truly work harder to connect people, that are doing life-saving research to the communities that can benefit from it the most. And so here you begin to see what are the benefits of having an organization like We Care. Again, we can connect with others. You have a forum like we have here to be able to share ideas. We have researchers here. You have an opportunity to share with them your thoughts. We have brought people together. And then the co-creation of solutions. That's what they want. They want to better understand because you know what? They really, really, really want to help out. Just for time's sake, I'm going to go past that slide. So Dr. Hill, when she first came to me, there's a certain type of medication out there. And many of you probably see commercials on TV. And this is not a CE program, so I can say words like Jardiance, okay, Farxiga. Saying those words, you probably have the jingle running through your mind right now. I'm sorry if I did it to you. But I said, I'm getting more questions anywhere I go. I mean, no matter where I go in the community, people are asking me about Ozempic. They're asking me about Mounjaro. And it's really funny, even yesterday I told an international group, we have more Europeans on there than Americans. I said what really happened in America is that the Hollywood crowd found out that we could inject yourself one time per month and lose weight, okay? You don't have to spend all that time in the gym, so they thought. So there's a problem, but when it comes to cardiovascular challenges, when we talk about what is called metabolic disorders, these are the parameters that we determine to see whether or not an individual may be at cardiovascular risk. Okay, and again, not to go into it in great detail, but yes, we do pay attention to abdominal obesity, triglyceride levels, HDL, cholesterol, which we want to be as high as possible. Typically it's much higher in women than men. Of course, blood pressure, and then what is your fasting glucose? Okay, fasting glucose. And so I can never be before a group such as you all and not begin to express one more time that SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19, the virus that causes that, I began preaching from day one. You can even go online and see, I published an open article in April of 2020 where I told the world, this is not a respiratory virus. This is a cardiovascular virus. Okay? Many people, and still, I'm probably one of the few people in the country you're ever going to hear say that. But the way it gets into your body and what it attaches onto and how it travels throughout your body is really grounded in your cardiovascular system. And what we found early on is that any individual, any human being that has elevation in blood glucose or sugar, elevation in blood pressure, these cardiovascular challenges, was going to be far more susceptible to having a problem with COVID-19 because of internal inflammation. Now the problem with this level of inflammation is not like if you bang your thumb in the door and it swells up. We can't feel that inflammation, okay? There's no warning that it's often happening to you, okay? Very often, even mild elevations in blood pressure at a blood pressure of 150, 160, over a period of time, over a 10-year period, that's going to lead to heart failure, potentially. And so we understand that, and so I always want to make sure that people know that when we're trying to say protect yourself the best you can from the virus, one thing you can do is to actually control your numbers that you just saw on the previous slide. So I just put this up as an academic exercise that even when, how many people in here, because you know what, I'm looking out here, you all still look at television. You see, young people don't look at television. Young people look at YouTube TV, Hulu, and then you know what? And then they come to their parents and say, hey, give me some more money so I can pay to not have commercial. Yeah, you all know how, I know my daughter does. Okay, it's like another $7, so she's gonna have to have commercials, right? But there are commercials out there for Roe and Hims that are saying, hey, GLP-1, GLP-1. Well, I wanted to show you exactly what GLP means. I ask my pharmacy students all the time. They have all these acronyms. I say, tell me what that acronym means. And they say, I say, go back and study. So anyway, glucagon-like peptide type 1, that's what it means. I wanted to kind of give you a semblance. When you see these medications like Ozempic, and by the way, these medications are not new. I had a clinic back in 2008 with Dr. Waddington right here. We ran a Byetta clinic. That was one of the original medications that was the first medication that came out on the market. I had people lose 40 pounds, 25, 30, 40 pounds way back then. It's not new. Okay, just to make all of you aware. But what these medications actually do, they do a couple of things. Number one, they kind of turn on a portion of digestive machinery inside here, and then they slow down a portion of it, they slow it down, we'll call it gastric emptying. And then that little organ over there on the right, this is what makes and manufactures your natural insulin in your body, okay? Now, medications of the past, I call that like medication would jump on, it's like having a jockey get onto the back of a horse like the Kentucky Derby. Because the medications we used to give is like that, and I never understand it, it's like this dude weighs 70 pounds and this magnificent athlete is 2,000 pounds. And you're letting that dude hit you with that little whip? Like, no, I would throw that guy off and just bring it. But medications that we've given in the past to treat diabetes, what they would do is that they would just make that pancreas keep squeezing until it just couldn't squeeze anymore. Mm-hmm. This medication actually has a rejuvenating effect of the pancreas. It helps to rejuvenate the function of it, okay, the cells inside of it. And so then, after it does that, it does a couple of other things. It helps your body peripherally take up and get that blood sugar out of your bloodstream. and get it into the target cells. Okay, so you see the word here, right in the middle, glucose uptake. And then for many of us, sometimes we get to a point where your liver is just pouring out way too much sugar. It doesn't mean that you ate any sugar at all, but sometimes the foods that we eat and the way your body processes it, you can have an enormous amount of blood sugar being poured out of your liver, okay? And so these particular medications like Ozempic, they go out and they help correct all of that. Now, if you were to look online right now, you would see a particular word that may come up when you look at it. Has anybody, now there's two pronunciations, I'm just gonna have the lazy American version of it. Has anybody heard of the Gila monster?
Yes.
Okay, so look, it's a lizard. Now, the medication you're injecting did not come from a lizard. But one of the reasons they found out about that was they were doing research on the Gila monster or the Gila monster. And they found out, hey, you know what, these Gila monsters, how can they be out in the desert and not eat all that time and still survive? And they found this little enzyme and they said, oh, wait a minute, look at that. Well, you know, it's very similar to what we have in humans. And so that's a big part of where this whole GLP craze came from. It did not come, it's not lizard juice. I had my patients come in and say, hey, you know, that stuff you gave me, you know, that stuff, I was reading about it. Did it come from lizards? I'm like, no, it did not come from lizards. But you can see here in this particular slide, I'm trying to scroll through again quickly. We have all these different areas. You can see that the injection of that medication actually works on multiple areas of your cardiovascular system to help try and correct much of the glucose or blood sugar abnormality that winds up happening in our bodies. Now, I do get the question often, well, shouldn't we just diet more, exercise more? This is a decades-old problem that we're not going to get out of in the span of a couple of months. That's why medication therapy for myself and Dr. Hill and all of my colleagues over here to my right, that's why we do so much instruction and teaching and research in this area. And so then the final thing that this medication does, or this class of medication, let me go back. If you inject this medication, one thing that you will notice very quickly is that your appetite is going to go down. Okay? Your appetite goes down. Now, many people think that that's exactly why so many people lose all the weight, but that's not it. That's not just it. Okay? But it actually does work directly on your brain. And people come back and have been reporting to me for 15 years, I looked at a plate of food, I used to have a big plate, but I already knew I wasn't going to finish all that food. What is beginning to happen now, especially for people that probably are not good candidates, is that they lose their appetite altogether. And then their body kind of turns on them and it says, you know what? If I can't get energy from the fat in your body, I'm going to get it from your muscle. So now we're concerned about people who are probably inappropriately taking the medication that have not actually been coached by someone like myself or Dr. Hill or Dr. Fox to my right, that would actually then begin to have a problem. I don't want to mention the name, but Dr. Hill just sent me an article this week about a very well-known singer that was on the medication that had a real particular problem. And as I read the story, I said, yeah, she probably did not have someone to appropriately tell her how to use this medication properly. So yes, it will trick your brain. That's a good thing. We want people consuming less calories, but we need to have a balanced diet along with these medications. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. Now, the only reason I put this in very quickly is to show all the different organs in your body. We have medications that can affect all of them in a positive way to help control diabetes. Some of you probably know people who are taking metformin and other medications. Okay, we're going to get through all of that. The original charge from Dr. Hill, she said, talk to them about these floaters. They work on your kidneys. Okay? Now, this is a good thing. They help your body expel excess blood sugar out of your bloodstream. Now, it doesn't drain it out. It's not unsafe. And we can actually give this medication to people who are not even diabetic. Okay? We can give both of them to people who are not diabetic. It will not bottom out your blood sugar. Okay? We do have other precautions we have to be concerned about, but it helps the kidney. It kind of creates a trap door in the kidney that allows all of the excess blood sugar to fall out of your body and be passed out of the body in the urine. And so very, again, I read about this 15 years ago and I was really concerned. It's one of my favorite medications. And another reason it's one of my favorite medications now is simply because of the fact that now, and I predicted this 10 years ago, I told my colleagues over in family medicine, I said, I really believe this probably is going to help people with heart conditions. And their response was, there goes the R&D guy again. There he goes. And 10 years later, it now has indications for heart failure and for chronic kidney disease. And it's doing very well. And for most of the crowd here, through research, we found out that African Americans particularly benefit from being on this class of medications up here. So one of the final slides I'm going to show you, this is very complicated. I showed you yesterday and I went into greater detail. The reason I'm showing this to you right now, this is the future of pharmaceuticals. This is the future. You're looking at it right now. Okay? Gene-based therapy, peptide-based therapy, RNA-based therapy. These medications, they are here, okay? And I've seen the pipeline. I was in Philadelphia last year, and a really good friend of mine, a great friend of mine, he pulled me, he took me behind the booth, and he had a computer set up, and he showed me the entire pipeline of what that one pharmaceutical company was working on. And I said, well, how diverse are the clinical trials? And he was really silent. And then he put me in contact with someone else, and they said, you know what? We could use your help trying to diversify the clinical research. But you're looking at how complicated the body is. When we talk about research, this is it. But let me show you some of the benefit. I don't want you to pay attention to all this narrative. That's not the purpose for it. But if you come down to bullet point number 3, this is a medication, and you can inject twice a year to control your cholesterol. You don't have to take a medication every single day. You inject yourself twice a year. Wow. We've actually gotten to a point where we know, we're pretty sure that's going to become once a year. And the great thing about it is that the side effect profile is outstanding. You don't really have a side effect profile. And remember that inflammation I talked about? It's having the benefit of reducing the vascular inflammation inside of your body. So that's one medication, and then a second medication here. Again, not a show of hands, but I'm just going to, I want you to hear the question in your mind. You don't have to put your hand up. Some of you out here may be taking a medication called lisinopril, okay, or losartan. Medication similar to that. You may know somebody taking a medication like that for blood pressure. Well, now we're getting to the point where we're going to be able to inject medication, maybe at this current moment, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, to help do the very same thing that medication is designed to do for you. Okay? Now here's the catch. So I'm going to come back. This is, I think, my final slide here. Here's the catch. When that clinical research is being done, as a matter of fact, let me go back just to show you. When that clinical research is being done, we need as many diverse people as we can get into that clinical research at the time it's being done. Okay? We need as many diverse people as we can in all the research being done. It doesn't have to be medication related. I was talking to our colleague from UCF here, Dr. Lighthall. She said, the research we're doing it doesn't have any medication. Okay? It's a questionnaire. We're trying to figure something out. We go back and help vulnerable communities. There's all kinds of research. Okay? But we can't benefit from the research if we don't participate in the research. Okay? And that's literally how it works. Okay? So the final slide I have here, the second is the final slide. So I come back here. So we want to know that a medication is going to work for you at the time that you need it. I often tell people, if you're not willing to do that, when you get really, really sick, don't go to your doctor. Don't go to the hospital. Now that's a really morbid thing for a clinician to say, but the actual fact of the matter is we are participating, we are racking our brains every single day. I mean, I can tell you, I was just talking to my colleague, Dr. Karnowski back here. We sit at a red light and our brains are churning, trying to figure out a new and better way to help people live a healthier life. I need to find a way to change that trajectory of 67 years. We need to get that to 80 years. I need to give back that 10 to 15 year period to that grandchild. Okay? And I don't even mind telling you, my dad's approaching 80, and both of my parents are approaching 80. I used to be their son. Now I'm just the father of their grandchildren. And I watch the interaction. My mom will call, hey, Mom, how you doing? She says, where is she? Where is she? I'm doing fine. Because but I look at that with joy. Because my children are now well into their 20s. And I can't even imagine what would have happened if they would not have had that 15-year period with them. We have to think about that. If my father had passed away at 65, my son would not have benefited from the 15 years. Okay? The 15 years of taking him over to Daytona and New Smyrna to go out there and catch his first fish. The 15 years of just rolling up on a college campus and taking them to lunch. My daughter's down at school in Miami. My parents would get in the car and drive to Miami just to take her to lunch. They won't do that for me. I'll tell you what, if they do, they know I'm paying. So I'm going to wind up here. I've got one video I'm going to show, and then I'll take any questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Hill. Narrated by our very own Dr. Hill. So, well, why do we care? Why we care? Why this program? We want to improve health outcomes.
The collaboration between USF Health's Tanasia College of Pharmacy's We Care program and Reach Up Incorporated aims to bridge the gap between underserved communities and access to care. We Care's mission is to increase the representation of diverse populations in clinical research. It starts with rebuilding trust between academic and clinical institutions through educating and empowering the community, and then providing research opportunities along with protection and advocacy for the participants.
They want to hear the story from folks who have been through a clinical trial.
You have to share all of that information with everybody.
So take the opportunity to have a better quality of life in our communities. Join us.
Thank you, Pat.
Wow, thank you.
Awesome. So, well, we appreciate Dr. Sneed's sharing his knowledge. Again, we are here today to talk about research. And so before we start our research fair, I just want to tell you that We Care has, courtesy of Reach Up, a library that actually houses a lot of recorded sessions that Dr. Sneed, myself, Dr. Austin, many of us have done related to research and other health topics. So if you want to learn more about it, on your centerpieces, you can actually scan the QR code and appreciate how to access the library. And if you want to see our hype video that you saw earlier, you can also appreciate that. And we do have on the College of Pharmacy's website a tab that tells you a little bit more about us and the work that we do. So I want to very quickly, for the next few minutes, I wanted to allow the City of Tampa's community outreach person who's been hosting us today and running around being my Vanna White, my Vernon White, everything else to try to make sure we're going. I wanted to give him a moment to just say hello to you all so we can also tell him thank you.
Thank you for everything that you are doing in the community. Please give her a round of applause. So, Dr. Hill, Dr. Sneed, this is impressive, what I see before me. Thank you all for being here today. And let me just back up a little bit. My name is Frank Crum. I am a community engagement coordinator for the City of Tampa. And on behalf of our Mayor, Jane Castor, welcome to the City Center at Hannah Avenue. This is your building. You all just happen to be here on a very special day. It was 1 year ago since yesterday, really, that we actually opened this building. We began moving people into this community. And that's very important because Mayor Castor had a vision of bringing government to the people. But we just didn't want a building with stuffy government shirts like the one I'm wearing today. We wanted to make sure that this building provided access to city resources, but also it connects people to people and people to the resources that they need. And that's the commonality that we have with what USF Health, Moffitt, and all of the other organizations we care are doing today. They're helping you connect your communities to the resources that they need. And so I want to tell you, when I was a kid, the word invisibility, every kid wanted to be a superhero. I said, well, what if I had the ability to be invisible? But now that I'm an adult, that's not necessarily what I would want to be, especially when we talk about clinical trials and who's not seen. When you are invisible, and I saw that stat about African American men, roughly 63, 64 years of age, yeah, that's critical. Because for whatever reason, we have been invisible to certain communities and to certain clinical trial opportunities. And this is so true. A missed opportunity today leads to a missed opportunity tomorrow. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about real quick. So, Dr. John Smith, former University of South Florida professor, former dean of fine arts, and also former president of Fisk University. He told me a story. He said, when I was a kid and I had a chance to go off to college, I missed my train to get to the university and start my educational process. My parents told me to gather my things, and they literally drove him to the next train stop so he can get on that train. Think about it, they had to drive faster than the train to get him there. He got on that train, and the rest is history. Instead of parents driving a child to catch a train, think about parents driving a child to a medical meeting about their condition and leaving that meeting with a little less hope than what they came into the room with. That's happening now. And by you all participating today, you can change that. So that the next time parents walk into that clinical meeting or that meeting with their doctor to talk about that child, there's an opportunity there that by doing what you're doing and becoming advocates, that those people, and maybe even down the line, some of your own family members, can walk out just a little bit happier. So I applaud all of you all for what you do. I applaud our heroes who have worked tirelessly to make it happen. Those here and those online as well, thank you for all that you're doing. And I would also like to invite you all back at any time to the City Center in Hannah Avenue. Again, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for you and your hospitality, and thank you again for allowing us to interrupt your normal work day.
That's all right. That's okay. We're here for the community, so we'll be your production assistants. Whatever you need us to be, we'll do it. So please come back and see us, and I'll provide a card as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. There are prizes I want to give away, but it's going to require participation. Okay, so take your phones out because you're going to need them, and I want to kind of go over a few truths or myths actually about research as you prepare to actually go and interface with our researchers if you haven't had a chance to get to all of them. So my clinical background includes psychiatry, geriatrics, neurology, those areas. And unfortunately, as I worked in the Bird Institute for over 10 years, for our industry-sponsored studies and some of the investigator-initiated studies, we just didn't have the numbers that represented the population that was most affected by Alzheimer's disease oftentimes, less than 5%. In 2020, the FDA put out this report and they kind of shared some statistics about what we're looking at, a little snapshot about who's participating. And when you see here, it's just a lot of room for improvement. We need more people, and we need more diversity primarily because, as Dr. Sneed alluded to, there are differences, not just racially, but when we talk about drug response. And so we are pharmacists unapologetically. And so we're gonna figure out a way to wrap everything back to medicine by the end of the day. But we want you to see us in a different light and understand that we're vested not in just giving you medications, but making sure that these medications will do what they need to do when they need to do and not cause unwanted and unnecessary side effects. And the only way we learn about that stuff, unfortunately, is oftentimes after the drug is on the market. And then you've heard of drugs having to be recalled, right? And removed from the market. Anybody, you all are old enough to remember Hisbanol and drugs like Zantac and all of those. Some of these drugs, unfortunately, have had to be removed from the market because we learned later that they cause life-threatening problems. And so, but if we could do the research beforehand, we can protect the community, right? Because we know how it would react in my mom versus Dr. Waddington or her beautiful mom, right? And so that becomes important. So when you see these statistics, there's room for improvement. Right, when we see the race distribution, even looking at the age distribution, and what we see, unfortunately, is not enough color variation when we look at some of the ethnicity pieces. So let's look at some of the myths oftentimes that we know create barriers, like, oh, they're just gonna treat me like a guinea pig. How many of you heard that? You think that? You're gonna be honest. Okay, right? Well, that's not true. Really, there's a lot of guidelines in places, and there's a lot of work that's been done to make sure that these products or devices and things are not going to cause problems. You're not a guinea pig, so we learn a lot before it gets to the level of human studies. And so just know you're protected. Another myth, if I join a clinical trial, I might get a sugar pill, or what we call a placebo instead of the real drug, which can be concerning if you're in something like a cancer trial, and we understand that. But oftentimes, most times, if you go through the study, at the end, you may still be able to get that active ingredient, depending. But a lot of times, we have to compare what those that get the active drug, what kind of response they would have to people who don't get it. And so it's smart, but it's always with safety in mind first. So you're not going to be exposed to things that are going to worsen your condition, and you always have opportunities for changes. So another myth is, oh, I'm only in a clinical trial when it's life-threatening. It's the last line, and that is the biggest myth, okay? There are different types of trials. Sometimes people in cancer trials, obviously, we're a little closer to being concerned about death than compared maybe to other conditions. But there's so many opportunities for you to think about research. There's so many different types of research. We have what we call socio-behavioral research, where it might be just a survey, or it might be just observing something, or sometimes we're using a device where we're not doing anything to you, okay? Or sometimes it's just screening. You know, there's different types, and so we want you to feel comfortable because there's a lot to be learned also before you get to what we call death's door, all right? But one of the things we need you to do as ambassadors is anytime you're diagnosed with a condition, ask your prescriber, ask your doctor, your provider, are there opportunities for trials? If they're not being forthcoming to you, because that's another opportunity. So we want to empower you to think about that. So one of the other bigger myths is, oh, once I enroll, I'll never be able to get out. Like it's a life sentence, right? That's not true. If you find you don't want to continue your trial, then you can stop at your liberty. And so it's not a marriage if you don't want to participate. But we do go through a lot hoping that you fit the criteria. And so the last myth I wanted to just address is that a lot of people think they're dangerous experiences, and they're not. You actually get top of the line health care you actually are getting first exposure to things and allowing us an opportunity to learn and appreciate. But the other thing is you have so many visits during the study. They're monitoring to make sure that if it's a medication, it's doing what it's supposed to do. We're documenting everything. And then there are people that are watching us to make sure that everything is going correct. So safety is always paramount. Always, always paramount. Does everybody have their phone out now? Okay. Anybody in the room participated in a clinical trial before? Oh, we have, okay. All right, so the people that raised their hands, they're already kind of involved and stuff. So I'm gonna give them a gift, but I'm not gonna give them a real gift right now. Okay. Some people get concerned about the release of all your health records. Well, we have to and want to, and you would want us to communicate with your regular core team. Sometimes there's a need for record exchange, but it's all in light of making sure they're aware because they'll be having to continue their care once the trial is over. Okay, so this is where I wanted to ask you a few questions. Dr. Sneed commented that certain generations don't know anything about the Tuskegee study. How many of you heard about the Tuskegee study? Right? So unfortunately and understandably, that is kind of what wedged a big gap for some generations. However, that lack of trust that he commented on has been part of our biggest challenge, is that that's what we passed on to the grandchildren, is that don't trust certain people that want to do studies. Don't trust if they say, because they might do something to poison you. So here, again, this lack of trust was a take-home message that Dr. Sneed really wanted us to walk away with. I want to know your opinion about research participation from some of our discussion today. How many of you are willing but want to know a little bit more? Just raise your hand. Okay, all right. And how many of you say, I'm still not willing to participate in clinical research? No? Oh, well, that's good. Dr. Sneed, nobody goes in here. Okay. And then our virtual audience kind of answered or has been answering, and they're following along. So we had a few people that participated in research, and I wonder, would you do it again for the few of you that did participate in research? Would you do it again? Okay, good. And how many of you said, I participated, but I don't want to participate anymore? And some of you are still kind of, Well, our hope is that you would consider it. And if you have questions, again, we care and would love to be a resource for you to kind of help you navigate through some of those issues. And again, in our library, as well as some of our trainings for both researchers as well as community members, we actually provide a little bit more insight, particularly if you're hearing about things like the Tuskegee study or Henrietta Lacks and those kind of things. We actually have provided some programming for that. So what we kind of did is we invited some researchers to come out today. Now they've been, you've seen them prior to the meeting started, you've seen them during lunchtime, and they don't bite. Right? They don't bite. They're human just like us. But they also have your best interests. And so we have some in the back of the room, some that are gonna assemble in the front, and some that are outside in the foyer area. And what our hope is that you would try to talk to them and find out about the studies that they're doing and the opportunities that you have, because there's somebody out there that might benefit from this research. There's somebody where this might make a meaningful difference. And part of the reason why we take a pride in working with, the Bird Institute, Moffitt, UCF, and our USF researchers and other researchers that aren't even mentioned here is because all of us have that same mission of trying to make a meaningful difference in people. We actually have one research team that drove all the way from Orlando here representing UCF, and they have that non-pharmacological kind of research that again might target older individuals, but might be something that if you can't participate, you might know somebody. So we encourage you to get things off of the tables get to know their names, because it's better to know people and not need them than to need them and not know who to go or where to kind of get started. So I do want to say that this kind of programming is only possible because we have people like 50 Hoops who are willing to kind of show us how to do it and challenge us to do these things. But it does take money, so we want to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsors, GSK and Janssen. And a lot of times, our drug companies get a bad rap. And everyone thinks they just want to drive the drug prices up and stuff. But they support this kind of programming and all. And so we're working on the pricing of medications and stuff. But we do want you to walk away knowing that they're not just in it to make money off of us. That the research that they're doing, they're investing a lot of dollars in research, again, to make better products for you. So you're noticing that we're making injectables that we don't have to administer twice a week, but we can go to every 6 months. That's because of research, okay? When you have a tablet that melts in your mouth, or you have a roll-on topical cream, all of that was because somebody did research. So I have a table full of other pharmacists that are here that happen to be FAMU graduates. I want to acknowledge them. So if you have any questions about medications, since me and Dr. Sneed are working right now, I offer them to you. We also have faculty members here that are pharmacists in their own right in the table in front of them. So just want to let you know that they too can explain. So your pharmacist is actually a resource for you in the community. You actually probably walked by these two young ladies out front. So on your way out, let's tell them thank you. I see Ms. Perez in the back and I see Ms. Evers in the back. You all don't know how hard I worked them over the last week to try to pull this together. So as you're muddling around, I want to make sure that you get around to them. And again, I want to say to our 50 Hoops group, thank you so much for giving us the baton. And they are so committed to this research thing that they developed the 10 Commandments, much like Moses had 10 Commandments, about the importance of recruiting diverse individuals into clinical trials. And so all of you have a copy of these 10 Commandments to take home. And I want you to imagine yourself being a researcher, needing people to participate in your research study. How would you motivate them? So these are some rules, but we want you to take these thoughts into mind and you go talk to the researchers.
Let's have a time of benediction as we close this event with some amazing people, some folks who really just want to bring good into the world, and that's what we're here for. So may the Lord watch over you and protect you. May his mercy and goodness follow you all the days of your life, and may his peace be your constant companion. Amen.